Hey everybody, in this video we're going to talk about loading, unloading, and the basic operation of a handgun. First thing I do when loading a handgun is I have to load the magazine. Here we have some snap caps so I can show you an example of how to load. Anytime I'm going to load a magazine, I always grab the rear of the round. The rear is the back where the primer sits. The primer is what gets hit by the striker to send the round down the barrel out of the muzzle. The front is called the projectile. In my magazine here, this top piece is called the follower, and as you can see, it's kind of exposed. These are called feed lips. I want to take the back of the round, put it on the follower, top pressure, and slide it underneath the feed lips. And now I have a round loaded in my magazine. A good tip when loading more rounds, so there's a spring in the magazine underneath the follower that the more rounds you load, it gets put under compression. So it's going to be harder to load more and more rounds. When you get to, if it's a 17 round magazine and a full size gun, which this is, when you start to get to 10, 11, 12, you're going to feel the tension. So one trick you can do is I'm going to take the thumb holding the magazine. I'm going to defeat some of that tension on the rear of the round. Thumbnail to thumbnail, slide in the rounds. We do have some little mechanical devices that help, called speed loaders, that can help you load in the rounds without actually having to use your thumbs. You can save your strength. Every time I pick up the firearm, I'm always going to do a 2-point safety check to make sure the firearm is unloaded. And you do this at all times, anytime you pick up a gun. So what are the 2 points? I'm going to look in the gun to make sure it's unloaded. So I'm looking down in the mag well. We can see light all the way through. And I'm looking down into the chamber to make sure there's nothing in the chamber of the firearm either. The next point is to physically inspect. I'm literally going to take my finger, feel into the chamber, feel down into the mag well to make sure there's nothing in the gun. So now I know I have an unloaded firearm. How do I load? Take the magazine with the rounds pointed forward, same direction as the muzzle. I'm going to take the magazine and insert it here into the magazine well. I finish with my palm, I'm listening for that click to make sure it's seated all the way. So next I still have to load the firearm because all we have so far is a magazine inserted. The slide of the pistol still has to go forward to chamber the first round on the top of the magazine. I can do that one of two ways. I can use this button here called the slide release with over the top thumb pressure, press down, slide goes forward, it'll chamber the first round off the magazine. The next way I can do that is called the slingshot method. I'm going to grab the rear of the slide. I do not want to grab anywhere near the front because again, muzzle management, trigger finger discipline. I don't want my hand to go anywhere near the front of the firearm. It's just a good habit to avoid. Pull back on the slide and just let go. So we loaded the firearm. Now let's talk about how to unload the firearm. I'm simply going to do that in reverse. Every time I unload, whether it's a rifle or a pistol, I'm always removing the source of ammunition first. And how I do it in the handgun, on most handguns, because they're built for the right-handed shooter, some handguns, like this SIG P320, allow you to put the magazine release, which is here near my thumb, on either side of the gun. The magazine release does exactly what it's named, releases the magazine out of the firearm. Now I remove the source of feed. However, I'm still not aware or sure if there's a round here in the chamber. So I still have to pull the slide back, which is going to eject anything that might be in the chamber of the firearm. I typically use the slingshot method we talked about before. I'm just going to pinch the rear of the slide, pull back, and as you saw, it ejected any round that was in the chamber. I'm also going to quickly visually inspect the chamber to make sure there's nothing there. Down into the magazine well, I'm just looking for light. Now I know I have an unloaded firearm. All right guys, let's talk about basic firearm operation, specifically with a handgun. So after I load and make the firearm ready, and I begin shooting, essentially what happens when I press the trigger is the striker in the firearm is going to ignite that round, and that pressure from the round going off is going to send the slide back and eject the casing like so. But there is a recoil spring inside the slide of the firearm. It's going to send the slide back forward and capture another round off the magazine. So just like I showed you, it captured the next round off the magazine and chambered that round. That's what makes this pistol semi-automatic. You do not have to rack the slide for every single shot. As always, guys, remember the 2 safety rules whenever you're handling a firearm: muzzle management and trigger finger discipline. Feel free to check out our next video on safe firearm storage and transportation.